Could the Denver Broncos have a brand new owner on the horizon? We give you the latest details as the Broncos prospective owners submit their second round bids yesterday. What does that mean and who is the favorite? You get that and much more on today's Tuesday episode, Locked on Broncos.
You are Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, Broncos country? Welcome back into a brand new episode of Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast here on the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day from the South Stands to the end zone. I'm your host, as always, Cody Roark, senior Broncos analyst at Mile High Sports, joined alongside by my co-host, Sayre Bediner. He's the site expert, predominantlyorange.com. Both of us provide coverage of the Denver Broncos to the Locked on Network and 9 News and Broncos country. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day, every single day, free and available everywhere you get your podcast in audio format, and for watching us on YouTube, available everywhere. Make sure you hit that subscribe and that follow button so you never miss out on a day's worth of Denver Broncos news, content, and coverage, because for the true fan, there's never an offseason. Sayre, my friend, it's getting down to the nitty-gritty. The Broncos ownership situation could have clarification in the next 1 to 2 weeks, as yesterday, the Broncos prospective Final Four bidders submitted their bids, their second-round bids, to become potentially the next owner of this Denver Broncos team. And obviously a lot of the signs point towards Walmart heir Rob Walton, my friend. Obviously a lot to break down on today's episode of the show.
Definitely. It's getting kind of intense, isn't it, with this ownership situation and everything? It feels like, we kind of woke up to a report pretty much from Forbes basically saying that Rob Walton was ultimately going to win the bidding war. But obviously, we don't know that for a fact just yet. And maybe there's certain people who think it's trending that way. Who knows? But as of right now, as of the time that we're recording this, obviously nobody has been officially named Denver Broncos owner going forward. There's going to be a whole process of that, of course, and a vote by the other owners in the league, which I believe 24 of them have to approve it, Cody, if memory serves me correct. So there's still quite a process here. But Mike Klis, obviously, he's been on top of this situation, and he's noted, the other candidates in this mix. Of course, Rob Walton, he has the biggest net worth of anybody that's in the mix right now. But there's some other candidates out there that could still outbid him and his group for this, potential owning the Denver Broncos, who could become the most valuable, quote unquote, franchise in the league.
Spot on there. There's 3 other ownership groups, as you alluded to: Josh Harris, Jose Feliciano, and Matt Ishbia. Those are the 3 other bidders. Now, with Forbes releasing that report that Rob Walton is expected to win the Broncos bid by submitting a $4.5 billion bid, in my estimation, sir, this is just my thoughts only, I feel like that gets out there and that can drive up the price, right? Because if Rob Walton's going to come in at $4.5 billion, but if these other guys that are bidding on potential ownership for this Broncos football team want the team, they want to win the bid, you know what it does? They're going to look to find a way to bid a little bit more than that. So who knows? The Broncos could be sold at $4.5 billion, which would be the highest sale of a sports franchise in sports history. And obviously for the Broncos, that is tremendous. Just a couple of years ago, the Carolina Panthers were sold for around like $2.2 billion. 4.5 is unbelievable, but then it increases the expectations for this Broncos team. Now, I think one thing, regardless of whoever becomes the next controlling owner, Sayre, there was an interesting development that Mike Klis had also reported, is that each of the potential prospective owners of this Denver Broncos football team have reached out. They have spoken to Peyton Manning about potentially being involved in the process here when the new owner is appointed. And obviously for Manning, he has not made a decision on that. He's going to wait until the new owner is appointed, according to Klis, before making a decision. But Sayre, I think for me, regardless of whoever becomes the controlling owner, I think what gives me, as kind of someone who covers the team, and I think maybe this can give Broncos fans a little bit of relief as well, if, let's say, Rob Walton wins the bid and becomes the next owner, a lot of Broncos fans are very concerned about the Walmart attachment to the Denver Broncos and Rob Walton there. If you, Rob Walton, enter the new realm of NFL ownership where this is new for you, he has no experience owning a professional sports franchise ever. Yes, he's related to the Kroenkes. if you bring in Peyton Manning, you give Peyton Manning a lot of that advisory role where if you have to make decisions at the end of the year, you consult with Peyton Manning. Like Peyton Manning will give you the football side of it. And then Rob Walton on the business side of it can maybe make an informed decision, whether it requires money, whether it requires, heads coming together, what's in the best interest of the Denver Broncos. To me, if Peyton Manning does come on in a role like that, Sayre, I think that would ease my concerns a little bit.
I think it would too, just having Peyton as a voice in there and not only as a liaison between, kind of the organization and its owner, which sounds super weird, but I think that would be necessary at least
Yeah.
early on, but also as a liaison between Broncos new ownership and the NFL itself. I think the NFL has desperately needed something like Peyton Manning becoming an owner of a team or a part owner, minority owner, whatever you want to call it. The NFL has needed something like that because the owners of the league, I don't want to say they're out of touch or anything, Cody, but they need a player like Peyton Manning to go in there and really kind of be a voice for the players on behalf of the players. Now, it's not like Peyton Manning's going to go infiltrate the owners meetings and things like that and totally change up the competition committee. And
I
but
wish.
I do think I do wish you do absolutely. But I think from an entertainment perspective and from a business perspective, from an image standpoint, Peyton Manning could really change a lot of things. It's just about I just feel like he would be such a prominent voice in there, especially when you have the backing of somebody like Rob Walton or Josh Harris or whoever else, among that group would end up winning the bid. I just feel like having Peyton Manning legitimizes everything that you're about to do. Look, none of these other candidates, none of them have experience owning an NFL team. So you're the new guy, no matter what, no matter how much money you just paid to buy the Denver Broncos. So having a voice like Peyton Manning, who has been just fully invested in the NFL, basically for the better part of the last 2.5 decades, that really gives you some legitimacy in terms of your voice, in terms of your seat at the table. So I really like the idea of Peyton joining on, and I hope that he does.
Yeah.
Now, as far as those candidates, who would he not be willing to join with? That would be fascinating to see from my vantage point. If the Broncos do pick somebody, if it comes to them picking somebody, if they pick somebody that Peyton doesn't want to work with, that would be really an interesting twist to this whole thing. So I really like the idea, though, of him being part of it no matter what. That would be, to me, the ideal situation that Broncos fans would be all on board with, no matter who would win the bid. If they bring Peyton Manning with them, I think that's a win.
Well, I think for Peyton, he's an ambassador of football and he believes in preserving the future of the game for future generations, which when he gave his Hall of Fame speech, I thought that was so important. And that right there made me excited about Peyton potentially having some sort of role within an ownership situation with the Denver Broncos. And Broncos country, we're excited to see what happens with the Broncos ownership situation. We'll have you updated here, the Locked On Broncos podcast. But coming up here in just a moment, Broncos head coach Nathaniel Hackett met with the media yesterday at the UC Health Training Center, and he detailed a little bit about Bradley Chubb and what he's seen from him in practice so far in the build up to training camp at the end of the month, next month in July in Dove Valley. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But before we do that, let me tell you about Blue Nile, the sponsor of today's episode, Locked On Broncos. And whether you're ready to pop the question or you're celebrating a milestone moment, you can find jewelry as unique as her with modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. And Blue Nile has simple online tools that let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring, and each ring is one of a kind. So make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Sports listeners get $50 off of purchases of $500 or more. And this podcast exclusive includes engagement. So use promo code Locked On. That's promo code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured. It ships free and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. You can shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. And our good friends over there, RockAuto.com. And if you need anything for your vehicle, as you know, RockAuto.com has everything you could be looking for your vehicle. Whether you're working on something in your garage, whether it's for your classic or your daily driver, you can find everything you need with a click of a button at RockAuto.com. You can browse based on year, make, model. You can choose the brand, specifications, and even the prices that you prefer that best match your budget. And the best part, Rock Auto delivers it all to your doorstep. You no longer have to pay 30%, 50%, or even 100% more at local chain auto parts stores or car dealerships. You can get them cheaper at rockauto.com. Free, easy, and convenient to you here today. So make sure you go to rockauto.com here today, see all the parts available for your car or truck, right? Locked On Broncos in there. How did you hear about us box? So that they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. All right, Sarah, continuing our conversation on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Once again, Broncos country, thank you for making Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day, every single day, for all your daily Denver Broncos news, content, and coverage. And we have an important favor to ask you, the listeners of Locked On Broncos. And we at the Locked On Podcast Network have put together a survey so we can learn more about our listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. And this is your opportunity to tell us what you like and what you don't like about Locked On Podcasts. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take you very long, and everybody who completes the survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. To take our audience survey, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thank you for your help. Sayre, the Broncos continue OTAs throughout this week. This is the final week of OTAs before next week's mandatory minicamp on June 13th through the 15th. We'll have more coverage here, Locked On Broncos, for you as well. Plus, I'll be at Cortland Sutton's football camp on the 18th, and I can't wait to get a little bit more insight from what he's got going on. Obviously, some of his teammates will be there, but Nathaniel Hackett met with the media yesterday in the Valley following practice. Some news and notes. Broncos wide receiver Jeudy left practice with what appears to be a little bit of a groin issue. Team is giving him some time to recover. And at this point, I don't think that we'll see him at mandatory minicamp participating, but I think obviously we'll see him there in person. He'll be off to the side. There is no point right now, especially with a big kind of break in between, I think 5 weeks players get before training camp. You want to get him some rest there. But, there is a player that has been back this entire offseason, hasn't really missed much at all, and has been healthy, and that is Bradley Chubb. Here's what Broncos head coach Nathaniel Hackett had to say about Bradley Chubb and his impact that he provides to the Broncos defense.
He's done a really good job, and he's starting to feel it a little bit, and both his pass rush and his ability to stop the run. I mean, he's a force. When he knows what he's doing, I mean, he's definitely somebody that we would have to, take account for.
He's a force, Sarah, and that's one thing to mention. And I think for the Broncos, this is best case scenario for the Broncos, for Bradley Chubb. If he can maintain this, and granted, there's no contact right now in OTAs, but if Bradley Chubb has a really great season, Sarah, I don't think anybody in Broncos country is going to be complaining. And I think that they won't have to worry about having to pay him a mega contract either. I think he'll get paid what he's worth if he does have a very good season for Denver.
I think so too, and it's a great situation for everybody to be in. We've talked about before just the major logjam, or the kind of the big, almost like a baseball lineup of edge rushers that the Broncos have going on. I mean, it's like, who's going to be hitting ninth in this lineup? Who's going to be our designated hitter? They have so many guys to fit in that it's kind of tough to figure out like who's going to crack the lineup at this spot. But Bradley Chubb is a guy that we've mentioned before, even just like, dang, like this position is so deep. Do you try to trade him and kind of get your top pick in next year's draft in exchange for Chubb? Or if he comes out and has a big time offseason, do your plans kind of change? I feel like with Bradley Chubb, Cody, everything is so flexible right now. Everything is so fluid. If he does a great job this offseason, the Broncos can kind of sit back and just say, all right, we picked up the 5th-year option. We can kind of see what he's bringing to the table. If he does have an awesome season and wants to get paid an astronomical amount of money, pun fully intended, because we know Bradley Chubb is the astronaut, I feel like they have the leverage of the franchise tag. And like you said, they also have the leverage to say, look, you've been hurt the last few years. We're willing to give you a deal that's fair value, but it's not going to break the bank. I feel like they're in a great position with Bradley Chubb right now and kind of where things are at. And it's great to hear that he's having a good offseason program so far, because we know he's been struggling to stay healthy. So for him to be healthy, it's great to hear from Nathaniel Hackett.
And he's been taking on a leadership role. We're going to hear from Broncos outside linebacker Bradley Chubb a little bit later on in the show here. But kind of staying on the same path of Nathaniel Hackett, there was a play that everyone was talking about where Russell Wilson found Tim Patrick on a deep ball downfield, and Hackett was going crazy. Let's hear what Nathaniel Hackett had to say about the anatomy of that play, and then we're going to react to some of the other things that appears that Russell Wilson has in this offense.
It was funny. We changed the script a little bit, decided to call something different, wanted to throw the ball a little bit because Adrian was starting to pressure us some, so we mixed it up a little bit. And it was great because it was a little check on that play. So I think it wasn't just the play that it was, but it was also the check that Russell got to. He was very sneaky too, so I didn't know it was coming, and I was a little nervous, thought he was going to progress, and then I look up and the ball's going, and Tim ran a beautiful route, so that was awesome.
Well, and obviously it led to a touchdown, which we're excited. There's more touchdowns for the Broncos offense this season. Everybody that watches this show, they're going to be more excited going into the week. And I think that there's a lot of excitement from Broncos country as is since Russell Wilson has become the quarterback. But, something I don't think that we have seen in a long time here, Sayre, with a Broncos quarterback is the ability to have that autonomy to check at the line of scrimmage. And that's exactly what Nathaniel Hackett just alluded to. Russ checked out of something, or he called into a check that changed the route. As we heard Tim Patrick say last week, we could come out in a formation, but we could check to 5 different routes based on, the type of coverage that we're facing. Seems like that was a really good example of that right here.
It was, and a couple of really important things from that. First of all, like you mentioned, Russell Wilson having full autonomy of the offense. Number two, it wasn't like Hackett went out there and shut it down and was like, whoa, 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 no, stop what you're doing. You didn't tell me you were going to do that. We didn't talk about that. No, he let it roll. He let the play continue to go. He watched it unfold. Number three, like you mentioned, Tim Patrick talked about he talked about just having, okay, we may have to run 5 different routes depending on the check. Well, they were on the same page for this particular route, and Wilson didn't even have to go through all of his progressions to hit this particular route. So to me, that says a lot. It says that Russell Wilson not only has autonomy over the offense, but everybody is gelling with it already. And of course, like you mentioned before, and Hackett mentioned this, it's not contact right now. There's no contact out there. But at the same time, if you're on the same page like this at this point in OTAs, just imagine what it will be like when there is contact, when you can have contact. I feel like the Broncos are in such a great position right now of just trusting each other, building this offense, getting a good rapport, getting good chemistry, and really just trying things out. That's what I love about Hackett. He didn't just talk about collaborative, type of work environment, but he really is exemplifying it by letting the players do a lot more than I think we saw in the previous regime for sure.
Oh, some might say that he is letting Russ cook, Sarah. We'll have to see about that. I saw the perfect opportunity. I had to take it. But Broncos country coming up here in just a moment. We're going to hear from Broncos edge rusher Bradley Chubb and offensive lineman Graham Glasgow as he comes back from a major injury he suffered last season. What are the optics that he has entering the season? Plus, give some detail on the injury he actually suffered. You get that and much more coming up here in just a moment. But before we get into that, let me tell you about BetOnline.net, the sponsor of today's episode, Locked On Broncos. And BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports information this season. And you can find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup, NHL hockey conference finals, Major League Baseball, and of course, all the latest fighting news from MMA and UFC to boxing, plus NFL futures. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. As we jump into the fourth quarter action on today's episode, Locked On Broncos, Broncos country, thank you so much for rocking with us here. Once again, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On Broncos is your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already so you never miss out on a day's worth of Denver Broncos news, content, coverage, everywhere you get your podcast, not to mention on YouTube where you can watch and engage with us as well. Sarah, as we continue on today's episode of the show, Bradley Chubb and Graham Glasgow met with the media yesterday at the UCL Training Center following day one of OTAs of the week. The Broncos back on the practice field here today. There will be a media availability, but practice is not open to the media here today. But we got to hear a lot from Bradley Chubb. And obviously we heard the praise from Nathaniel Hackett that he has been a force so far this offseason. Hopefully he can maintain that and stay healthy. But for Bradley Chubb, he's entering a very pivotal year in his career. As we've discussed at length, and we talk about how loaded the Broncos edge rusher room is. There's one guy that we've all talked about that we found out last week that he wanted to make the move to edge rusher. The team also wanted him to make it, and that is Baron Browning. What did Bradley Chubb have to say about how he's approached working with Browning as he makes this transition?
Yeah, man, it's crazy when it comes to Baron, man. Just the natural skill set he has for the position. It's amazing because you'll see him go out there and he just throws his shoulder down. To him, it feels like he's just doing that, but on film, it looks like the craziest thing ever. You know what I mean? And he's just trying to keep coaching him up, he's coming over to the house and asking me what he sees from his playing and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to be there for him, like you know what I'm saying, Vaughn and those guys were for me when I first came in, first moved to the position. So It's been great to see all the natural things he has already. And once he starts adding in those small little details, it's going to be over with for him.
He's mentioned, obviously, Browning's been working with him, but he's also mentioned in whole that the entire Broncos edge rusher unit, they've been going out and they've been having dinner together. They've been a tightly knit unit, and it is a loaded room, and they're all trying to help each other get better. Love to hear that about Baron Browning and how he's progressing along. Obviously, I know the expectations of a position change are very high. Your thoughts here on Bradley Chubb becoming that mentor role now for some of these younger guys, the way that, as he alluded to, Von Miller was for him.
I just think it's so great, right? It goes all the way back to Von really getting poured into by a guy like DeMarcus Ware and how different things were before DeMarcus Ware came to the Denver Broncos. Of course, Elvis Dumervil was on the roster when Von Miller was drafted, and that was a fun duo to watch for a couple years, but things changed around for Von Miller just in terms of his life trajectory, first and foremost, when DeMarcus Ware showed up and really became that mentor to him. And then Von took so many different players under his wing. It didn't matter if they were the 5th overall pick in the draft like Bradley Chubb, or if they were undrafted free agents like Shaquille Barrett and Malik Reed. It didn't matter to Von Miller. He was willing to take those guys under his wing, and he's done such a great job of that, including building the pass rush summit, which is another way just for any pass rusher in the NFL to go and learn from one of the best to do it over the last decade plus. And you love to see that. You love to see Bradley Chubb really taking what was done for him and doing it for somebody else. That's a great sign of humility. Bradley Chubb's not, it's his contract year. He has every reason to be out there and be selfish and to just be like, you know what, I'm focused on myself, focused on staying healthy, focused on helping, this team. But he's out there, pouring into these young guys, which is great to hear. He talked about Baron Browning. He talked about Nick Bonito. He talked about the gelling that they're doing just outside of their field work. It's really great to hear. And Bradley Chubb, I think, is one of those guys that we've heard George Payton, the general manager of the Denver Broncos, say nothing but great things about him. I feel like he truly is a core player for this team. And he's exemplifying that with the way that he's leading the young guys at his position group.
Another guy that Peyton has talked about as, having high praise for is Graham Glasgow, offensive lineman, played right guard for the team, was a key free agent acquisition just a couple of years ago, was an Ironman, and then he dealt with a couple of injuries when coming to Denver, which, have been unfortunate for Graham there. But, like for him, coming off of a very, very serious injury that he sustained in a meaningless play right before halftime in the Broncos' big-time win against the Cowboys, a play that should have never happened. Where is Graham Glasgow at in his recovery? Here's what he had to say yesterday.
Things are good. I'd probably say about like 85% or so, maybe a little under that. But things have progressed like super, super well. And I'd like to think I'm a little bit ahead of schedule here. So, as I said, things are going good.
Graham is a subscriber here on our YouTube channel, though, by the way, Sayre. I will mention that. He watches Locked On Broncos. Graham's obviously been very great to us in interactions that we've had with him. But, even like for him, the injury that he sustained, very serious, ruled out right away, had to have surgery. But it's like when you hear the detail, I said, like, what actually happened, Sayre? I can't imagine it. Someone who's torn his ACL, like, that sucked. But just imagining what he had to go through with both ligament and bone structure damage, that right there would have been a huge issue for me. Here's what he had to say about the actual injury that happened.
I tore a ligament from my foot to my ankle that had to be repaired, and then I tore the ligaments in my high ankle, which needed to also kind of be repaired as best as they could, and then I broke my leg, and that had to be fixed with a plate. So it was it wasn't very fun for me, but that's okay.
Didn't sound very fun, and I'm very fortunate I've never had to deal with that. But, for him to be where he's at and he believes he's ahead of schedule a little bit, Sayre, I think that's good news because right now everyone is talking about it. There's some anticipated training camp competition coming up where Glasgow expects to be ready, I think. I think he believes he'll be ready for training camp, but he and Lloyd Cushenberry might be competing for the starting center job here in 2022.
I think that's going to be a fun competition to watch. I think he's going to be motivated coming back from this injury. Obviously, he talked about in his press conference, he wasn't even able to walk in shoes for 3 months after that injury. And you just hear that list of injuries that he went through on, like you said, a meaningless play before the half against the Dallas Cowboys. Really just a bummer for everyone watching the game to see that. But man, he's fought his way back, and to be at 85% or close to 85% right now here in June, I think that's awesome progress for Graham Glasgow. So I'm excited to see him get back on the field. look, I think he's got a lot to prove, right? He restructured his contract to stay in Denver, and he wants to go out and prove to this new coaching regime that he can be a starter at multiple positions for them, because obviously he started his, in Detroit, he's been at right guard. He's played the other guard position. He's played center. He's done a little bit of everything. He even talked last year about the fact that I could play, I play right tackle. I've not done it a lot, but I would try. So, I mean, he would go out there and do it just because I think he's a ball player, Cody, and he's ready to get back on kind of that. He was on a Pro Bowl trajectory, I felt like, and he got the big money contract from the Broncos in 2020. And unfortunately, the injury bug just it spares nobody. It goes after anybody and everybody, and unfortunately, he's got bit by it. So hopefully, he can come back healthy, and hopefully, we get to see him in the starting lineup, because I think a veteran-laden offensive line would be a lot of fun to watch for this Denver Broncos team.
Well, not to mention as well for Glasgow, he's just a team player, and he's restructured his contract as well to return to Denver. I mean, Denver could have had the out; they could have moved on this offseason. The Broncos approached him with a restructure proposal, and he was willing to do it. So he took less money, restructured his deal to be able to come back to Denver. So I think this says a lot about Graham Glasgow, especially like for him. He values Denver. He's been bummed out that he's been dealing with some injuries, but I think this is the ultimate sign of saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, I certainly understand. I've been injured. I've been dealing with it, but I still want to be part of what I believe is something special here with the Broncos and Broncos country. Let us know in the YouTube comment section or on Twitter how you think that training camp will go with a potential competition between Lloyd Cushenberry and Graham Glasgow down below. Let us know here, but that'll wrap up today's episode of the Locked On Broncos podcast, free and available everywhere you get your podcasts. Also on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Sayre, Bediner, myself, we will be back tomorrow as the Broncos continue OTAs and practice. We'll look at some of the storylines emerging, plus will we have more clarification on the Broncos ownership situation. Tune into tomorrow's Locked On Broncos to find out.